So first of all, welcome to this one. We're going to talk about building extensibility for Microsoft Viva Connections. I'll enable the video in a bit. I just, as an ex-consultant, I tend to stand when I'm presenting. Let me actually do that. So you can actually see me better, and I will adjust that so it doesn't look too bad. It does not look too bad. That's good. So my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a program manager. Actually, I'm a product manager nowadays. That they changed our title from a program managers to product managers. Nothing else changed. In Microsoft 365 platform side of the house, I've been in Microsoft now for 15.5 years. One of my colleagues said that it's more than half of your career, which is actually quite terrifying. I still have a few years left until my career, until I will retire, quite a few. So it's okay. But in this call, we're going to talk about, or not call, presentation, we're going to talk about, as said, building extensibility for Microsoft Viva Connection. We're not going to deep dive on things. We're going to call out the positioning, messaging, why are we building things? Because there's the one thing explicitly which we haven't done a really good job of explaining about the Viva Connections. I really wanted to actually talk about why and what does it mean for customers and why are we doing here and what are we investing here in the future. And that means that this is not about coding. So we have good tutorials, we have a lot of demos and code available. I will show all of that for you as well, but I'll try to keep this one in a relatively high level so we understand the basics, like why would you be interested in learning more? Or why would you potentially be interested for your team, development team members to have a look on these things? Plus, where to get started, what is this thing, and all of that. So I've divided the presentation in 4 steps, which are basically introduction on the Viva Connection. So what does it mean, where it's coming from, all of that stuff. We're going to talk about the extensibility options in Viva Connection. So what does that mean actually? Kind of a follow-up on that, and what do you need for starting when you're starting building extensibility in Viva Connection? If you come from if you've been implementing stuff for Microsoft 365 for a longer time, if you've done SharePoint Framework extensibility, all of this is familiar for you, but you never know. Our audiences in these kind of conferences are typically quite heterogeneous. Basically means there are people who've never heard about Microsoft 365 or never heard about Viva Connection before, and then there's those who are already building stuff for them. So we're trying to kind of balance out all of the sides. I'm going to show you a quick roadmap slide that would be familiar for some of the people if you're participating on our bi-weekly Viva Connection and SharePoint Framework community calls. We always update the slide though every single call, so giving you the update on that. And then the last step is how to kickstart your development, so making sure that you're up to date on where can you find awesome samples. For example, all of the stuff what I'm going to show today is available for you to take advantage in your pre-sales, in your development, all of that stuff. So every sample what we do is intentionally MIT licensed. And that means that MIT license basically in GitHub means that you can take the sample, you can download it, you can adjust that, you can even repackage the solution and push it in store or in a marketplace and hopefully make billions and billions and billions of money with that. So that's really our intention. So make it easier for our ecosystem to build extensibility and capabilities in the Microsoft 365 platform. In this case, we're going to, however, focus on Microsoft Viva Connection. So you probably are familiar with the overall kind of a, let's say, messaging around the Microsoft Viva, but partly because of marketing reasons, even though I'm from engineering, not from marketing, I wanted to actually have the slide here just to kind of explain what the Microsoft Viva is all about and also the future, because this slide is already a bit outdated. So originally when Microsoft Viva was announced, we talked about the fact that we'll have Microsoft Viva Insights, Microsoft Viva Topics, Microsoft Viva Learning, and Microsoft Viva Connection. And when the initial announcement was done a bit longer than a year ago, I think it was 28th of February or 23rd of February last year, we used a bit of a different logos and all of that. So the new logos were announced November last year, and this slide is up to date on the logo usage. Already in the November, we actually talked about that Microsoft had acquired Ally.io, which is about OKRs and performance evaluation and deliverable tracking. And that's going to be part of the Microsoft Viva offering. But you can kind of figure out what we're doing here. So we're adding and bundling functionalities and offerings under a larger umbrella, which is called the Microsoft Viva. And really that focuses on the employee experiences and focuses on improving or bringing tooling on understanding how employees are working, also for employee communications, self-insights and all of that stuff. And all of these individual Viva pieces, they have their own licensing model and licensing implications. Now, there is a Microsoft Viva overall license as well, but as an example, specifically on this today's topic, which is the Viva Connections, the Viva Connection does not require any licenses to enable the functionalities which we're going to show today. So there's no license costs. You can just add Viva Connection to your Microsoft Teams and have a hopefully better corporate communications, which is really the sweet spot for Viva Connections. Now, specifically on the Viva Connections, it's really targeted to be the gateway to the modern employee experiences and really focuses on a few things. So first of all, focuses on corporate communications. So making sure that as people are more and more working in the Microsoft Teams, you can easily access the corporate communications. Traditionally in Microsoft Teams, we always focus on chats and teams and channels and all of that stuff. But then there's the concern, how would we ensure that the employees are up to date on what are we doing as a company? All of those HR announcement, all of the business leadership announcement and all of those are always exposed in a typically classically in this kind of a corporate portal. And Viva Connection is really on taking that corporate portal and plugging it in the Microsoft Teams in the easy way, so you can easily access the information directly in the context of the Microsoft Teams rather than opening up another browser or an application and getting there. The second dimension here is really the mobile. As we know, and many of you know, well, depending on a region you are actually from, more and more customers are looking into doing stuff in mobile. These mobile devices are getting smarter and smarter, and you can do cooler things with them. And people carry them with them all the time. So rather than forcing the employees to use random kiosks or whatever, we need to enable our employees to get access on the corporate information directly, easily from their mobile device. And Viva Connection is really targeting this in a bit different way. Of course, there's all of the modern portal technologies in the Microsoft side are all responsive, but Viva Connection provides here a mobile-first experience to build our company, build your own customized mobile portal, really optimized for the mobile experiences. And that's what you're seeing on the, I guess that's kind of an iOS picture on the right side of the screen. So really focuses on the fact that you can build mobile first native mobile experience in a mobile devices. So let's not demand everybody to have a laptop or a computer where they sit on. As the frontline workers go through the locations, they go to the customers, they check up whatever installations on the customer yards, whatever, they can still access all of their employee benefits and all of their employee information. They can request holidays, they can request well-being breaks, they can check the latest HR news and all of that stuff easily from their mobile device just with the click of a button. And that's getting natively integrated then in the Microsoft Teams, which is a really, really key point here as well. And I'll show that one in practice as we move along within the slides. Now, like said, the Viva Connection really consists from two different distinct scenarios. And this is something which I really, really want to also emphasize because there's two different opportunities for the partners as well. So the Viva Connection is not just about the mobile, it's also about the desktop experience. So there's a desktop app in Teams, which we can easily enable to be available in Teams. We can modify that, we can customize that any way we want. We can personalize that based on the logos and text and all of that. And inside of the Viva Connection, what you can see right now in the Relay Cloud section in here, you are as a customer or as a partner, you can define whatever you want to be there. It is completely up to you what are the functionalities there, and we can further extend those functionalities which are exposed through this portal or through this view. And the same actually kind of applies in here. So the mobile, like I said, is the new mobile app in the Teams. And this is kind of an, how would I put it? It's an application for Microsoft Teams, which has its own extensibility model. So it's kind of a meta, so to say, because it's an application which can still customize and modify, which is an mobile application in Teams. So it might take a while to actually catch on what are we actually doing here. But again, the main idea is that every single customer can define their personalized experience for their employees based on the role what the employee has in a native mobile way. So when I open up my Viva connection from Microsoft, I will see a specific set of functionalities targeted for my team, my organization, and the news which are relevant for me. And then I can drill in to the actual Microsoft Teams applications or Power Apps which have been installed in my tenant. So it's really the mobile portal for the company designed for mobile first use. Now, the mobile experience can be divided in 3 different sections. So the first section is the dashboard, which is actually visible as a web part potentially in the desktop area as well. And this is something what we or customers and partners can modify based on the business requirements. We use quite often this typical, let's say, layout. So I'm going to show a live demo in a second of this one as well, but you can define whatever you want to be visible. What are those buttons and what are the applications? Again, based on the persona. If a persona is in frontline worker and they need to fill in the inventory of whatever application, they can easily access that from this location. Sure, that could be linking to a Power Application app where they actually fill in the information, or it could be a native Microsoft Teams application. But the key point is that you'll have this quick view and quick view for the corporate functionalities what your company is providing for the employees. And that's really the intention of the mobile dashboard and mobile experience. The feed is also there, and this is kind of the corporate, almost saying that out loud, corporate social feed. I'm not going to say what the company name, which I almost said, but basic idea here is that as we have a lot of, let's say, intelligence inside of the Microsoft 365 on what people are using, what are they publishing, what are the files what people are using, all of that insights and additional corporate knowledge can be then surfaced in the feed in a personalized way. So you will see only those information in the feed which are relevant for you, like files which your colleagues have been edited or files which have been shared with you recently. So you can find all of that in feed, or the news articles which have been sent for you to view as well. So really cool stuff as well. And then the third option is the resources, which is also can be personalized and created, customized employee experiences. So you can easily access, for example, websites and assets and files and all of that stuff from this third view. Now, before we go to the extensibility option, I wanted to actually show you a bit what this is and how do we enable things briefly on enabling Viva Connection in a tenant. Not going to spend too much in there because that would take like 15 minutes. Well, a bit more than 15 minutes. I'll call out this bit of a challenge there, and then the desktop versus mobile experiences and their usage scenarios. But let's go in this tenant. So first of all, I wanted to actually talk about a bit, how do we enable things? How do we do things to make the Viva Connection to work? And how do we enable the dashboard and those Viva Connection pieces to be available? Now, first of all, what we need to do is that, not in there, and let me go into the SharePoint Admin Center. This is a combination of SharePoint and Teams working together in a seamless way. So we need to actually create a content and create a site, and we need to set that site to be a home site. Right now, currently, you can only have one home site in a tenant, which is a bit of a, let's say, limitation. Let me zoom this a bit. And there's my landing page, which is in the root of the tenant. Again, it doesn't have to be in a root. It can be any site collection in a tenant. Quite often, I would say that it would be quite typical. It's the root of the tenant, so which would be the home site. So keep the URL simple, and then I can basically set that site to be a home site. Right now, clicking the wrong button. Right now, that is set to be already a home site for my tenant, and that means that wherever I'm in my tenant, I can easily access that location. So it's kind of my corporate landing portal. So that's requirement number one. Now, when I set a site as a home site, and that then enables additional capabilities, additional things in here. For example, it will enable the dashboard functionality to be available. It will enable potentially the feed web, well, it will enable the feed web part and a few additional things to be available in that tenant in the SharePoint side of the house. So right now, We are still in SharePoint. And then I can modify my dashboard. It's kind of a cool thing. If you are, of course, if you are the owner and editor of the company, and for example, typically these are corporate communicational people or HR people, they can then define what are the different experiences, what are the different cards, what are the different features, what is the order of the features, and what will be visible then for the mobile experience. And we can do stuff like audience targeting, so we can basically change the behavior visibility of that particular card based on an organization or a profile attribute. And audience targeting here means basically Microsoft 365 group, and you can use dynamic groups here as well. So it's really, really cool and flexible way of then filtering what will be visible. Now, in my case, I already created this kind of a basic layout of things. There's some web parts, wrong word. There's some ACEs, adaptive card extensions, which are almost like web parts in a certain order, and I can flip them and change the order and design what will be visible in which order. Let's put the holidays over there. Let's actually pull down that one. Let's, for example, raise that one in there. The UI design, my personal let's say reference is always like almost like a Windows 7 mobile phone, which was, by the way, an absolutely brilliant UX. And of course, we'll evolve the UX design and UX options in future here as well. Now, as I've then decided that this is the absolutely brilliant mobile experience, and this will be also visible in the front page of the tenant or the front page of my home site of my tenant, I'm basically able to surface that dashboard as a dashboard web part. So this is a specific web part which is only available for the home site, again, of the tenant. So that's the requirement of adding the site as a home site. When that happens, this web part will be visible in here. Now, I can then do additional settings, additional configurations. By the way, some of these settings, like setting a tenant site as a home site and getting the web part visible, might take a while. So it's not something what you can easily demonstrate with click of a buttons, and then magically everything will be available immediately. That, unfortunately, there's some wait times and background processes which have to actually fire. Not quite optimal, but I guess we'll streamline that in the future as well. So as I've then designed the experience, as I'm now super happy with this awesome looking layout, which in this case, by the way, let me show this, republishing. Come on, you can do it. No idea what's going there. Let me go in here. Just a quick side note, if you're wondering where would I actually get cool looking designs, you can of course use the lookbook.microsoft.com to provision your example portals, example functionalities or layouts, which then you can set to be a home site and then extend using that dashboard. So that's an easy way to have really cool looking designs available. Let's get in here. Unexpected error. Let me do republish, and still unexpected error. Let me do refresh, full reset, and that's fine. That's we're basically now in a published mode. Let's not worry about it, that things happen. No idea, was that a hiccup? Maybe my kid is watching 4K videos in YouTube, and that's causing some issues from here. Now, as I've done the design and I'm in SharePoint, then the next step, what we would be doing is exposing this portal inside of the Microsoft Teams. And there's a few ways of doing this, but with Viva Connection, we wanted to introduce this more polished experience to make things happen. So there's a native application option, which is the Viva Connection initially, and then it can be renamed to something else. So now if I go to my Teams admin, I will go to the Teams app, I will go to Manage Apps. I can see all of the applications which are available for my company. I can then search, in my case, Contoso, because I already have modified this to be called Contoso, and it already has been installed to the Microsoft Teams. In my case, I have, as you can see, demo tenants, so there's quite a few Contoso things. But the reason I know that that's originally the Viva Connection one is because the publisher is Microsoft. So now if I modify this one and enable that to be available, we have this additional customizable option. And we can actually, from overview, we can see that it's the Viva Connection. And the customize option gives us then options of modifying things like the short name, description, full description, and the icon, which will be then visible in the Microsoft Teams. And this is a relatively new feature in Microsoft Teams, which actually you can take advantage as a custom application provider as well. Viva Connection is taking advantage of that as well for providing this personalized experience for icons. So that way the Viva Connection transforms to be your corporate employee experience. And as you're doing that, then you can actually modify or add the application setup policies. Here we go. You can modify the application or the application setup to be visible for your company. So like in my case, in this tenant, what we've done is that we pushed that same Viva connection to be always the first one in top left corner. So we'll have the corporate communications first and then activities and chats and teams. So typical order for the rest of the things. But this is an easy way to set up policies to push in the applications, including Viva Connection, to be available in the Teams. And as I'm doing that, then voila, as we are inside of the Teams, let me again a bit zoom in this. We can actually see that we have the Contoso in here, which is actually Viva Connection. And then we have the same portal visible in here. We have the dashboard and all of that. So, and these are the extensible ACE components. They work really well in the desktop, but more importantly, they also actually work in the mobile. Quite often, we'll probably see demos which focuses on showing you the experiences in dashboard in the desktop. And it might raise some questions. It's like, well, wait a minute. Okay, so yeah, cool looking card, cool looking designs, and oh, you can actually do pretty nice looking things and designs on the cards. But what are these things? Well, the same functionality then happens, or same functionality is visible when we access these things using the mobile. So now I'm in the mobile, I'm in the Teams, I'm logged into that tenant, and where we have, of course, the Teams and channels and chats and all of that. But we can see the Viva Connection personalized experience here with the Contoso logo. I click that one, not clicking that, clicking that, big difference. Bad joke, I know. But now you can actually see the same dashboard in the mobile experience. And now you can see the native design, whatever you as a corporate editor or corporate communication person have decided to be shown in here for your employees. You can click a button, you'll see a nice looking designs. You can do operations again, mobile first, because you're working with your thumbs or fingers, not with the keyboard and not with the mouse. The experience is a bit different. And then you can do things, you can do collective feedback, you can do whatever is the thing what you want to do in that particular experience. Get answers. We can do something like the menus are quite often quite popular thing in the demos and all of that stuff. You can do cool looking designs, graph. Again, information in fast available from your corporate sources in native mobile way. And then almost like more importantly, I can do something quickly in here, but if I need to, I can actually change and move to the more native experience. So let me see if I can, where do we have benefits? I flip the order. So there's the benefits. So I can, of course, move then to a native Microsoft Teams application, and this way it integrates to Microsoft Teams experiences. And what happened in here is that we actually opened up my native, my personal application, which have been installed in Microsoft Teams, where I can actually do additional things and search on additional things. In this case, this is just a demo application showing functionalities, but I can actually operate again natively. And then when I'm done with my operations in the Microsoft Teams in mobile, I can click back and voila, I'm again back on the corporate mobile experience designed for me and optimized for me in a mobile way by my company. And I can do whatever I wanted over there. And that's kind of the thinking. So quite often in the demos, we always skip the mobile experience, and that's the pity because it's really about the mobile experience, which is getting better and better and better. We know that there's certain rendering issues here and there, but the key point here is that it's rendering in the native mobile way. As an example, when I do scheduling, when I do dates, this date is actually Android date picker. Why? Well, because I'm using an Android phone. In this case, it would be then the iPhone native picker in the iPhone case. So it's really fast, really fluent, and I can do things in fast way within my mobile. Good, let me move that one away. Let's go back on a few slides, and then I realized that, oh, the time flies when we're having fun. Always happens to me because I talk too much. Now, what are those extensibility options? So let's talk about this bit. The extensibility options are all based on SharePoint Framework. So the Viva connection, which again doesn't require any licenses, is a new option to build extensibility using the SharePoint Framework. We are in progress of potentially, well, hopefully, and the progress is looking really good, renaming SharePoint Framework, because it is the easiest way to build extensibility, and not only for SharePoint, but also for Microsoft Teams and for Viva. So it's a bit confusing again. Why do we call it SharePoint Framework? But with SharePoint Framework, you can do extensibility for SharePoint Online, for Microsoft Viva, and Microsoft Teams. So there's different extensibility options, and they work in a different way. Well, they work, of course, in a different way because they're different extensibility options. That's kind of logical. But the key point here is that we have this automatic code hosting. The beauty of SharePoint Framework, or whatever it will be called, is the fact that you, as a developer or as a person who's deploying the solution, you don't need to worry about the Azure configuration, the websites, the operational, the maintenance, all of those additional costs in Azure. No, it's hosted for you. It's hosted in Microsoft 365 as part of your Microsoft 365 license, no additional cost needed. And then that application and extensibility is exposed either in SharePoint Online or Microsoft Teams in Viva Connection. And as we can see from this picture, if you are fast enough, you can see that with Microsoft Viva Connection, if you go around the square, you can see that there's 3 extensibility options which we support, and those being the web parts, application customizers, and adaptive card extensions. So the web parts are exactly the same web parts what we have for SharePoint portals. So any of your existing investment, you can move it into Viva Connection desktop, and it just works because, again, we're technically just exposing the SharePoint portal with some additional functionalities inside of Microsoft Teams. So you can design whatever you want. You can build as many web parts or extensibility there as needed. Application customizers, same thing. Those are the same application customizers which are designed and available for SharePoint portals. So the placeholders, the telemetry, the usage details, and all of that. And that works in the Viva Connection desktop experience. And then the third option is the new option, which is the adaptive card extensions. And that's really a new extensibility opportunity. So we can start building this adaptive card first, mobile first experience extensibility designed to be used with the thumbs, so to say. So that's why they are a bit bigger and a bit different than those which are designed to be used with the mouse. But at the same time, those cards can be, if we want to, exposed also in the desktop experience. So there's some level of consistency then having the same dashboard available in a native mobile or as part of the desktop experience. And really the idea here is to bridge the app models, SharePoint, Teams, Power Platform, Web, and Mobile. And the easiest way to actually do that is these absolutely brilliant videos, which my manager, I can say this because proud of my manager, he actually recorded this because this actually shows really nicely the capabilities that we can by default use the dashboard for mobile and desktop to integrate with Microsoft Teams personal apps, bots, and Power Apps and Pages. So there's actually some really cool capabilities here. So let's first create a Teams app. Teams app is a card which is available by default. So you can link to any Microsoft Teams app, existing Microsoft Teams application, which have been installed to your tenant. And it automatically actually takes the icons, logos, text, and all of that stuff and descriptions. And that then makes it easy for the employer in the mobile to find the poly and find the other application. And this is of course, you can optimize this based on your needs, based on what other applications are being exposed, rather than employee being in Teams and then the app picker and trying to find the poly. We can basically say, hey, poly is the one which you should be using every single day. Or more importantly, in this case, this is a Power App in the Power App, which is all around registration, the COVID-19, coming to office before you go to the office, built with Power Apps. So there's a native Power App integration with this dashboard as well. And we can configure that relatively easily to be available. Or we can point to a SharePoint pages just as well. So we can actually point to an existing SharePoint page, for example, HR information, benefits. If you have a cool looking page, existing investments are already available, you can just point a card there, and whenever the employee then is using the mobile card experience, clicks the card, he will be redirected directly to the target location. And we can modify these things. We can design any way we want the experience using the web designer. So this is really the editor, the person who designs the corporate experience to be available. And then as we start using this, we actually see them live in both desktop and in mobile experience. So we first use the desktop to design things, but then we can see those same changes in the mobile side. We can easily move from the Viva Connection mobile to the Teams application, which are available in my tenant, or to the Power Apps, which have been installed to the tenant. Again, you have a one corporate mobile portal where we have the most used functionalities, and you can easily move to these applications, and everything is integrated directly in the mobile. And as we submit, for example, the attestation, we can easily go back on the corporate front page in the mobile experience, click another card, see what we can do there. Now, we already talked about this one, but we also, of course, support custom cards. So we can build these custom cards using SharePoint Framework and adaptive cards and your stack. And your stack basically means that all of this integrates to wherever we want. So we can integrate to AWS, we can integrate to Azure, we can integrate to LOB systems, we can integrate because full flexibility in the Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Cloud. So individual cards, there's a few different design options for those cards. So on the left side, you can see the card design. In this case, we have activated the well-being card, which is now saying you have 5 more well-being days, scheduled one to recharge. Good examples, story. Thank you, by the way, Anoop, for helping this particular sample to be available. We first created a quite functioning solution, but Anoop finalized that. I'll show you where you're going to find it later. But as we click the card, we then show a Quickview, which is using adaptive cards. And in that adaptive card, we can basically just design whatever we want with adaptive cards. They can be quite complicated and cool looking. They don't have to be this simple like in this case. We can use the card depending on the device what you're using. The date picker looks a bit different. Again, because it's using the native experience in the mobile. And then from there, we can, if we want, move to the application. So again, we're kind of applicating the most used application to a single mobile portal, which is the left side, the dashboard, and then you can easily access to the actual application. And when you have finalized to work with the apps, you can go back on the original side. So the Quickview is called Quickview because we're kind of thinking this in a way that what are the most used operations within the Microsoft Teams application, Microsoft Teams app. And let's surface those most used applications as a quick view, as a quick functionality, rather than forcing you to go to the application, then use the application, trying to find the things. Let's think through what are the scenarios in there, and let's make it natively first mobile experience using the Viva Connection. So the main implementation still is in the Microsoft Teams application, but we can have a nice mobile first experience as a quicker way of getting things or seeing things to approve or seeing the latest KPI values or OKR values or whatever you're using for metrics. Now, as we're implementing these things, there's a lot of opportunities available and it makes them available. So in this case, we said we have the well-being thing. We can, of course, make that work in the dashboard, in the native browser. But again, as mentioned, it's a bit confusing that we always show these demos in the desktop because more importantly, the cards are being designed for the mobile first experience. So basically in the mobile, use the mobile experience, have a mobile quick view functionality. I can quickly request a date rather than trying to find the application from the catalog of application, and voila, that request is now pending for my manager, and my manager can easily access or approve those functionalities. Or I can easily access my task, and I can easily say that, okay, those tasks are done, rather than again try tasks application somewhere else assigned by somebody else from one single location. So trying to again improve the productivity of the users as much as possible. So that's kind of the thinking behind of the ACEs. card, Quickview, and apps. And in these things, we have different options what we can define. We can do dynamic titles and icons. We can do text, of course. We can say, well, we can actually do dynamic images as well. The image layout isn't actually visible. We can have multiple buttons and cards, and from them, we can then move to the quick views. We can have multiple views. They can transition between the views, and then from there, we can transition to the app. And that's behind of the scenes. Again, the quick view is adaptive cards implementation. The card view, which is the left side, is a bit limited. So there's a separate set of, right now, 3 different layouts of cards, but we keep on pushing. Engineering keeps on pushing our design to accept more designs, so we can get this a bit more cool looking, because that's one of the feedback what we're getting also from partners and customers, that we need to make the mobile first experience a bit more hip and pop and flexible and colors and all of that stuff, which is understandable, because that's what the customers quite often want as well. We'll get there for sure. So behind of the scenes, this is briefly kind of the stack, how we're doing things. UX for quick views and cards is always on the adaptive card template model. SharePoint Framework acts like the orchestration layer, so basically responsible of reacting on the button clicks, reacting on loading the data or loading the data, pushing that data to the adaptive card. And then we have the Microsoft Graph API surface, which is to where we can access the data. So we use the Microsoft Graph to get to the list data, get to the whatever the emails and calendars and whatever it is, or external APIs, and then SPFx works as the orchestrator of rendering the UX out with the dynamic information. Now, as I realized that I talked too much, which never happens, I will actually skip explicit this demo, and I'll show you where you're going to find awesome demos and functionalities available. Technically, again, these are all, I will not completely skip the demo. For example, the well-being application and well-being solution, it's a combination of a web part and ACEs, and it is a SharePoint Framework solution. And we have hundreds and thousands of samples of it, well, more than 1,000 samples available in Microsoft 365 to get started. I'll show you that, and that's my focus for the following 5 minutes or so, or maybe even faster. Now, the next steps and roadmap. 1.15 coming. I'm not going to deep dive too much in here. We will keep on evolving these functionalities. We will keep on introducing new features, functionalities on the Viva connection, new features, functionalities on other areas as well. So technology is evolving. We keep on evolving this technical stack as we move along. How would I actually kickstart our development? We do have our community channels. This is a classic slide where we always say, we have videos, we have open source, we have sample galleries, we have open source initiatives and samples. Please do take advantage of them. We do provide you also Microsoft 365, free Microsoft 365 developer tenant, where you can enable Viva Connection to be available, because Viva Connection is free. It doesn't require any licenses, so you can easily take advantage of that. AKMS/M365/dev program is the great URL to sign into that program. We also have a training material available for Microsoft 365 platform. And more importantly, of course, and for this particular session, we have an explicit module, 1.5 hours for extending Viva Connection, where we actually go through the basics of the code and we start from scratch. Now, the coolest thing ever, which we will do announcement blog post, we've been talking about this a few times in the community calls, quite a few times already, is the Microsoft 365 sample gallery, where we have now more than 1,000 samples from Microsoft and community, including tens and tens of samples for ACs, hundreds of samples of web parts and application customizers. So you have a lot of assets to get started. Microsoft Graph samples and Graph Toolkit samples, Power App samples, and all of that. And it's a great location to get started on finding what's relevant for you. So let's quickly have a look on that. And then I'm realizing that we, like mentioned, we are a bit running out of time, which is not that unique in my case. But if you go AKMS M365/samples, easiest way to find it, you'll actually land on our sample solution gallery, where we have right now 1,000. Let me actually zoom in. It's so small. More than 1,024 results available by default. So that's all of the samples which have available. And from here, you can then easily find stuff like, okay, so I'm interested on Viva. What was it? It was well-being was the sample, where Anup Tati from Content and Cloud helped us on building this. We can see Anoop here and Waldekin here. And we can actually access the sample details. That's just one sample. Again, there's multiple Viva samples. I just knew the search criteria to finding this one. And for individual samples, I can download the specific sample from GitHub, or I can view the sample in GitHub. So I have all of the details and examples. In this case, this is quite cool solution. It has a Microsoft Teams personal application and then ACES, and it all ties in together. And Anoop has a great guidance on how to set up things as well. So it's really cool stuff. And of course, if you're interested, like in this case, for example, Anoop is an absolutely great community member and an MVP who's been building stuff. The sample gallery actually have personal views on what are the samples, what the people have contributed. So like in the Anoop's case, he has provided us awesome set of reusable samples around the Viva Connection ACES, which is an area where he is investing with his company. So really cool stuff and examples and how to implement things, which are great starting points for your applications as well. Now, a lot of talking, a lot of things to cover in 40 minutes, because I realized that it's 40 minutes a bit too late. But I want to say thank you for joining on the session. Hopefully you learned something new today. My actually objective wasn't about the technology. It was more about the positioning of the mobile experience and mobile portal, because we keep on a bit failing on explaining why would I actually implement this thing, and how would I then from here transition to the other application, and how does all of that work. So that was really my objective. And if you're wondering, and if you do this kind of demos by yourself, please take advantage of Android Studio and all of the emulators, so you can actually connect directly to the individual tenants, because then you can show actual real-world functionalities, how the mobile actually work, and how to render things in the Microsoft Teams. So this is really cool functionality for anybody who's doing live demos as well. Oh, that tenant has apparently a small hiccup. Let me jump back in here. That's much better. Looks much nicer. But I guess we have a few minutes time. I don't know if we do, for any questions, which we might or might not have. There's Marvin is asking question, at least in the chat, related on when will the app bar be available within Viva Connection? That's an ongoing, let's say, discussion with our design organization. How do we expose the app bar together with the click functionality? So something related on that one, because unless I'm mistaken, we have a few minutes. If you click this one, you can actually get the Contoso in the Microsoft Teams in a desktop or in a mobile. You actually get the full view available. And from here, you can then access sites and global navigation. If it has been configured, you can easily access things. How would this then relate on the app bar? And that's the ongoing discussion. And we'll see when we will actually make that transition to happen. I don't want to comment on that. Any other questions? So much reading out. Marvin is saying, thank you, cool, thank you. A lot of hopefully we'll figure it out. I know that there's work and discussions going on the app bar. And also, should it be extendable? All of those stuff is again ongoing as a discussion. I know that we have an after party starting in 15 minutes. Maybe there's beer in the hotel lobby or in the conference room lobby. Just kidding, like we would be in person. But I don't see too many questions on the chat. Please join on our community channels. We do have, for example, bi-weekly Viva Connection and a SharePoint Framework community call happening every single Thursday, bi-weekly on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. GMT. And we do have our Microsoft 365 developer platform call happening on every single Tuesday. You'll find all of the details related on assets and samples and all of that stuff from pmp.github.io. Or alternatively, the URL which we shared already in there, which is AKMS M365 PMP. Both of them are pointing to the same location where you can then find all of the samples, guidance, SDKs, community calls. There's so much stuff available to get started. And maybe just a big note, one more final note. For example, if we go to the samples site and web parts is one thing for Viva Connection. Our web part gallery is just out of this world. That's one of the galleries to get access on things, but I will go to the GitHub, and this is so many cool samples to get started. So all the time people are asking, do we have an example on this and that and that? Going to the sample gallery using things like persona or person search or gallery or whatever, we always find usable starting points. Microsoft Graph people search, well, that's pretty much, or organizational directory web part. So there's always something to start with, and all of these things do work in the Viva Connection desktop experience as well, which is absolutely awesome. Please, please, please do take that advantage. Don't start from scratch. But I guess that's it for now. So thank you again joining on this one. Please stay in touch and let us know how we're going to improve things. We do build Viva, Microsoft 365, and functionalities for you. And Juha is actually asking one more question exactly on the moment when I'm saying, do you know what is the roadmap for all different app stores? Yeah. So, and then there was a link, ask for the link of the things. So first of all, let me go to the sample gallery. I will add the link on that one in the chat. And then I guess Lauren was asking location there, or alternatively, our community pages where we have access on everything that's on the chat now as well. The store, the different app stores, is a bit of a challenge. So this, well, I think it's fair to say that it's a bit of a challenge. And every single store is evolving, but in their own time for now. And then on top of it, we have the app stores. The listing of the apps is the same in app stores or in the specific stores, but every single store, Office Add-in Store, Team Store, SharePoint Store, upcoming Viva Connection Store, all of those are evolving a bit of their own time. So there's no specific roadmap as such to share, unfortunately, because they're all quite independent. If you have specific questions on specific things on those, then we can potentially mention on them. But no significant updates, at least from the team side. I can say quickly, Viva Connection product type is planned to go to the SharePoint store and in the app stores quite soon. Team solution, SPFx solution supported in Team Store is in work. Can't give you the exact date because you will be angry if we miss the date. There's a lot of work to be done on alignment between the Office add-ins and Microsoft Teams application together with SharePoint Framework solution. That's a bit of a further down on the road. We're all aligning to the same packaging model. And as we're doing that, we can potentially maybe at some point have a unified Microsoft 365 store, which would be the logical thing to do. But for now, a lot of the stores are evolving in their own silos, which is a bit of a bummer for the field. Good. Now I will I guess it's time to then close up. Fair question, good question for sure, and something which we should be more maybe open on the roadmap for them. Maybe that's it then. We have 12 minutes before the after show starts, and I know that there's already people in the after show thing. I think it was again on the virtual world. So please take advantage of that one. Hopefully the day has been awesome for you. Hopefully from this session you found out new things. If not, let us know. Again, if we need to have more deep dive guidance, deep dive sessions, deep dive code and videos and all of that stuff, that's great feedback as well. We will certainly do that. We are always kind of trying to target the getting started series and getting started things so that we get people interested on investigating more time on things, and that because that's how we get new developers, and that's why many of Microsoft-led sessions are quite lightweight. We could go much deeper, of course, from a technology side, but then the audience is much smaller, and that's the thinking behind of the scenes. But for now, I guess it's time to close up for today.